Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Crown and today we are going to have some more stories that I hope that you will enjoy. But before we start, it will be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now, without further ado, let's go! First story. Teacher screams at me because of my Tourette's. So before I tell the story, I should mention that I have a minor form of Tourette's that causes me to twitch. I was somewhat pleased to not have any verbal tics that would have made me the target of harassment during school, but sometimes people saw me as that twitchy kid. Anyways, on to the story. So it started about a decade ago when I was still in school. I had an English teacher, Mr. M. He was kinda nice, but sometimes he took things way too personally. Like if you called his class boring, he'd act like you keyed his car or something. So one day during class, as we were working on homework, I couldn't understand a question, and rather than being humiliated by asking help on an easy question, I decided to wait until my free period where I can ask for help from my resource teacher. So I put the homework away and decided to read the Percy Jackson book I had in my locker. When I raised my hand to ask to go get it, I started having a twitching fit, as I call it. It causes my arms and hands to clamp up and my fingers to do kind of one-handed clap thing. So it sounds like I was snapping my fingers at Mr. M to get his attention, and he did not like that. As soon as he heard it, he whipped his head right to me and angrily stormed up to me, and then he put his fingers right in my face and started snapping them and asking, "How does it feel being snapped at like a dog?" Being completely blown away by this sudden behavior, I could only just stammer, "Huh? What?" Then he said, "Snapping your fingers at someone is damn rude. You should be ashamed of yourself." I then, on reaction, said, "I did not snap at you. I have Tourette's and did this," and then proceeded to do the one-handed clap thing. And this only seemed to infuriate him even more, as he proceeded to scream at me to go to the office and he'd be down there to speak to the principal about my dehumanizing actions. Completely scared, I decided instead to grab all of my things and just run home. I did not even check out in the office. I just ran halfway and then took the bus the rest of the way home. I then spent the rest of the day hiding in my room, pitting my cat in comfort, dreading the call the school will make to my parents. I had built it up in my head that I'd done something very wrong and that I was about to be suspended from school and have my butt paid by my parents. My heart sank when I heard my mom come home, and she came in and listened to the home phone answering machine. A few minutes later, she knocked on my door and asked, "OP, did you leave early from school today?" I stayed silent at first, hoping I could pretend I wasn't there. But then I figured if I came out clean, maybe my punishment would be less severe. So I let my mom in my room and told her everything. When I was done, she had a bewildered look on her face and she said, "Wait, the teacher did what? All because he thought you snapped at him?" I nodded quietly, not sure if I was in trouble or not. She then said, "It should say in your IEP that you have Tourette's as well as NVLD. I'll have a talk with the principal about your teacher and how you can control your tics." After that, I felt a huge weight get lifted off of my chest and all I could do that night was hug my cat. The next day before school started, the principal was waiting outside the school greeting kids, and when he saw me he smiled and said, "Don't worry, OP. Everything was taken care of." Everything eventually blew over, and Mr. M ignored me for the rest of the year, which I was fine with. Next story. Lady, I'm in the middle of an asthma attack. Hey there, this is my first time posting. Tell me if you want to hear more stories like this one because I have many. A little context. I have asthma. Been diagnosed ever since I was 3. The smell of pesticides and detergents are among the strongest triggers for me. I always have my inhaler with me and I learned over the years to manage it. Now for the story. I was in the store shopping for some frozen breakfast burritos and toilet paper. I shop a lot at that store and usually stay away from the cleaning products aisle because of my asthma. But some rearrangements were made and I did not know where the toilet paper was, so I was passing through many aisles. I came at the start of the cleaning products aisle, saw what it was and immediately bolted. There was a lady in that aisle spraying air fresheners in the air to decide which one she liked, I guess. And when she saw me running away, she screamed at me, "Hey you, come here!" I thought she was shouting at someone else as I wasn't wearing the uniform of the store and I had a basket in my hand. I was in the middle of my hunt for toilet paper when I felt a hand on my elbow. "I'm talking to you, you witch!" I turned around to see this lady. Mask at her chin was the ugliest shade of red lipstick. I'm asthmatic and high risk for COVID for other reasons as well. So I reacted fast by taking a few steps away and saying, "Please put on your face mask. I'm high risk." She seemed really angry and said, "You can't tell me what to do. I tell you what to do. You work for me. Now come here and smell these for me and tell me which one is better." I saw this upcoming scene in slow motion. Her taking off the lid of the bottle and spraying the product in my face. Twice, so I can compare between the two smells. I was already getting iffy ever since she came close to me because she smelled of the air fresheners. So my attack had already started before she even sprayed me. I quickly threw the basket in my hands and started looking for my inhaler in my backpack. After I got it out, she quickly grabbed my hand and told me, "Help me first and get to your drugs, you brat." My chest was becoming really tight now. I pushed her away, causing her to stumble back a few steps and quickly grabbed my inhaler and saved my life. I was still catching my breath and coming down from the adrenaline rush from this whole interaction when I heard, "There she is! Fire her! Arrest her! I want her in jail!" I looked up to see the woman was someone who looked like a manager. The manager looked absolutely mortified. His eyes went wide and he said, "Miss, are you okay?" While helping me stand up. He grabbed my shopping basket and picked up things that dropped from my backpack. "I'm better now. I just need to sit down and catch my breath." I told him, "No, you're going to fire her first. She can breeze on the way to the police station for assaulting an elderly." The Karen said. She looked no older than 35 years old. "Elderly who?" The manager tells her, "Shut up, you idiot." The manager completely ignored her screaming and led me to his office, where I sat by the window to breathe a little bit. This all happened while Karen was screaming at our backs. Apparently, someone had called the police because 5 minutes after we were in the office, the police were knocking on the door. Karen says, "Yes, finally." The manager asked me, "Would you like to press charges?" And Karen's face was a carbon copy of Pikachu's shocked face. "What are you talking about? I'm the one who was assaulted by this employee." I finally had the energy to scream at her. "Oh, how can you be so stupid? I obviously don't work here. I also very obviously just had an asthma attack right in front of you. Who do you think you are, witch?" The police officer asked us for other stories. I explained what happened and of course told the whole story. The Karen said some nonsense that the police officer looked absolutely done with. He asked for the CCTV and the manager gladly obliged and showed him the footage. I said that I wanted to press charges for assault, and the police officer put the woman in cuffs and took her away. The manager gave me my stuff for free and offered to call an ambulance, but I told him I was fine and used to my asthma. Eventually, I got home and enjoyed my burrito. Next story, entitled "Mother Says I Permanently Disabled Her Child." Before I start this story, I have to add a bit of backstory. I'm a 19-year-old male and when I was younger, around 14, I used to do taekwondo classes. I was a black belt at the time and I really enjoyed it. We had a few incidents where parents would take their aggressive kids into classes for a free trial, but they were mostly dealt with by the instructor. But nothing makes my boil blood like this incident. I did taekwondo every Tuesday and Thursday for around an hour. While on Thursdays, I was in an age requirement class which was 13 plus, so most kids had common sense. And it was tougher than Tuesdays which had no age requirement, and I was helping the instructor teach as I had done training for it, which helped me with getting a job because I was planning on working in a place like this. So one Tuesday afternoon, 10 minutes after the class had started, an entitled mother runs up the stairs making a ruckus with her whining entitled kid, who looked around 7. The instructor lets me know that I'll take over for a while as he goes and assists the entitled mother and kid. While I'm showing the class, who were mostly young kids around 7 to 9, how to do a certain punch, the entitled kid bursts through the door and runs straight over to the punching bags. He proceeds to push me over as I was crouching and starts punching the bag. I stood up immediately and said to the entitled kid in a semi-unhappy tone, "Hey, you can't be doing that to others." He immediately stopped punching the bag and said, and I kid you not, "Get lost, you crazy jerk." Well, he didn't say jerk, he said a very offensive slur. I stare in shock at the kid who was younger than most people in a room that was using language that I wouldn't even use on my worst day. The entitled kid then skips away like nothing happened. While still in shock, I continued the class as I would tell the instructor after he returned about the incident. I looked over to the entitled kid who was saying something to his entitled mother, which I assume was about me, while she was purchasing a uniform. She stops and looks over to me in pure disgust, then says something to the instructor who had a confused look. That's when another kid grabbed my arm and asked for my help with a punch. I gladly go over and help him to get out of that situation. About 10 minutes later, the entitled kid comes out of the toilet wearing a uniform with a wet stain on it already, which we can all agree on what it was, and he proceeds to start talking to the other kids about his Minecraft world. Luckily, the instructor overheard this. I went over to tell the entitled kid to listen or sit out, in which he replies, "Fine." The instructor informs me that he will take over again, and I should put the punching bags back. I do as he says and then go grab a drink and sit down while waiting for him to call for me in a demonstration, in which he does a certain hair grab escape. After the demonstration, the class partners up and does it with each other, in which the entitled kid comes up to me with the biggest grin on his face and asks if he can be my partner. I reluctantly agree, as he pulls my arm while running into a spot and he says he wants to grab my hair first. I knew exactly what he was going to do, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. He then grabs my hair with full force, laughs and pulls me, in which I respond by kicking the back of his leg so he would fall over onto a mat. When he fell, he decided not to let go of my hair but to pull me down with him, in which he had pulled some of my hair out. After that, I yelled at him saying, "Why the hell would you do that?" When his entitled mother looks over and says to me, "You little witch, get the hell off of my son, you pedo." I start to stand up while holding my head and the entitled kid starts yelling he can't feel his leg. The entitled mother comes and whacks me straight in the face with her handbag as the instructor comes up and yells at us to get out, in which I grab my bag and walk out the door with a giant bruise on my face as I wait for the bus. A car pulls up to me and it's none other than the entitled mother and kid themselves. The entitled mother says to me, "You will be hearing from us very soon. My son is permanently disabled and you will pay for all of the bills." She then grabs a full water bottle and throws it at me. Then she speeds off while her entitled kid is grinning at me. Update: I'm currently considering reaching out to management to hand me the CCTV so I could file a police report and press charges against the entitled mother for hitting me with her purse. And I will let you know what comes out of it. Next story. Go home. We don't need you. A few years ago, I was down on my luck and decided to work for a nationwide pizza chain. I had worked there at various locations and in every position, off and on since I was a teen. At this point, I was 30, so I figured my 15 years of experience should count for something. After a few months of working, I asked how I could move up to manager. Seeing as how I was just as, if not more knowledgeable than the current managers, I thought I would be a shoo-in. I was told by the regional manager that once I got a vehicle of my own, he would promote me. I found a place that would take a small down payment and lease me a car with an outrageous interest rate. I was desperate to get on my feet, and as long as the job was legit, I'd struggle all I had to in order to eventually make it up the ladder. I became a manager and immediately felt like a fool. Apparently, managers only get a $1 raise and are now expected to put up with way more crap than that $1 afforded. We had to clean the entire store on closing shift, sometimes be there until 4 a.m. and so on. I was bamboozled, but it was fine. I was on a mission to escape the street life I grew up in, as I refused to ever sell drugs again. Anyway, about a year into my manager position comes our busiest day of the year. That's right, Super Bowl Sunday. All managers were scheduled to come in at 9 a.m. in order to prep. I arrive promptly and begin the prep tasks. Being on time is something I pride myself in. But I know my co-workers are often late, so I assumed they were just a few minutes behind. Unfortunately, the next manager did not come in until 10 a.m. I was clearly hungover to the point he was no help at all. Each subsequent manager came in 1 hour after another until all 4 of us were finally there. At this point, I was a little upset and exhausted, but whatever. I'm a team player. Just did our jobs and kept it moving. The entire Saturday was busy with little to no break time. If you've ever worked pizza on a Super Bowl Sunday, you can imagine the crap show I'm describing. Phones ringing off the hook, ovens packed to the brim carry the lobby full, and my co-workers and I were like a well-oiled machine. We knew how to work with each other very well. No mistakes, no late orders, busy as hell, but we got this. Then enters the regional manager, Jeff. Jeff and I knew each other since we were teens, as we had both started with the company around the same time. He hasn't worked in a busy store in years. His primary role is to check in at various stores and ensure that they had what they needed. But of course, he wanted to jump in and assist us. Shake my head. Jeff immediately begins dropping food on the floor, packing orders in wrong boxes, routing deliveries improperly, and just about anything else he could do wrong. It was annoying, but we couldn't say anything. Jeff would blame us rather than admit he was screwing up. At some point, I decided I could take a few puffs from my cigarette at the back of the store. After all, I had now been there 12 hours with no break. A cigarette would take the same time as if I went to take a dump, so why not? I literally took 2 puffs and threw my cigarette out because I heard the phone ring and wanted to help. When I turned around, Jeff was staring at me like he just caught me with his wife or something like that. Before I could say anything, he said, "Oh yeah? Get the hell out of here. We don't need you." Mind you, this was 2 hours before the end of my shift. I was the only person here on time. 12 hours with no break and made no mistakes at all. On top of that, I was scheduled to open the store the next morning. I simply replied, "Sure, Jeff, no worries." I went home and planned my revenge. When I came in the next morning, I put my store key on the manager's desk with a handwritten note. "I'm no longer needed here. I quit." I took a picture on my phone and sent it to my co-workers, who I knew would still be sleeping. No one knew until a few hours after the store was supposed to be open. They lost hundreds of dollars. I quickly found a better job with more pay and less responsibility. Today I make triple what I made then. Apparently he still brings me up years later, claiming that my mommy must be taking care of me. What an idiot. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.